let's talk some more about schools. I would imagine, do most of these children end up in special ed classes?
Not necessarily.
So
The fetal alcohol syndrome children do, who will test out in or around a mean of around 72 IQ that includes performance, verbal, and full scale, or below. Sometimes they'll end up in special ed classes and they'll have the constellation of facial features, etc. The growth retardation. But again, with the fetal alcohol spectrum disorders, what we see is that these children's IQs, the mean IQs will be within a normal range, so they don't qualify for special education. However, if it becomes clear that they have issues that are related to impulsivity and, as you say, look like ADD, they are entitled to an individual education plan, which can help the parents or foster parents identify and work with the school system to set up certain programs for them. Most often those children are in regular classrooms.
Do we know of effective ways to work with children who have been affected by alcohol in this way, to help them with their behavior, their impulsivity, all the things that you have listed as being symptoms of this condition?
Yes, absolutely. Structure is very important. Having a structured bedtime, for example, and the transitions need to be taken into account. They have difficulty with that. So say for a bedtime, you get ready for bedtime about an hour before bedtime, and there's a structure to that. You brush your teeth, you do this, and then we go to bed. And perhaps you might, have them pick some sort of music that's gentle, or they have the new sound machines that is, gentle for them.
Like white noise machines.
The white noise machines would be good for bedtime. There has to be consistency and a nurturing home, and understanding that the children are brain damaged. They're not doing this because they are mean. They're having long and short-term memory problems. You might tell them to do something or ask them to do something, and they'll go through a whole process of doing everything but what you've asked them to do, and they'll come back and you say, "Have you done it?" And they'll say, "Oh no, but I did this." And it's not because they're trying to be mean. They don't remember, and they have poor judgment.
What about in the classroom? Are there specific tricks that teachers can use as well to try to help children?
Yes, they need to be, when the teacher notices that the child is becoming highly stressed, there are ways that can be, there are means to be utilized to deal with that. There's a project in Washington, D.C. called Project Daisy that works with children that are, I believe, like kindergarten to second grade. One of the things that they have utilized is, and I know this sounds very strange, they'll have the children lie down and they'll tape their body image. And when the teacher sees the child becoming stressed or, having anxiety issues, she or he will say, "Go get into your body." And the child will lay there, or they'll set up a cubby for them to get into, because what we found is that it's a safety, sort of a safety unit or a safety feeling when they are in these areas. Another way to work with them is to, how do I say, kindly or respectfully remove them into another area where they can become settled and focused again.
And calm down.
Yes.
What about stigma, though? I mean, you're talking about basically then having the child do things that most of the other children in the classroom aren't doing.
Well, yes, Project Daisy is specifically for...
Oh, so they're not in a regular classroom.
Right.
But what about stigma, and what about bullying from other children? Are children with fetal alcohol effects or fetal alcohol syndrome subject to more bullying than other children?
Of course, because the other children see that they are having these issues in class, and they also see them as being vulnerable, and it can set them up to do things because these children desperately want to be part of a group. So they will, be the person to take on the dare of jumping off the roof or doing something that the other children wouldn't do. And then the other children, stand back and laugh, and they have difficulty with judgment and cannot really figure out who their friends are.
And we should say this is a syndrome, this is lifelong. It's not just infants and children who are affected by this. What about adults who have, it doesn't go away, fetal alcohol syndrome doesn't go away.
No.
What is the future like?
The future, I can say, and there's been a lot of research on this, is that many of these people end up in the penal system. And that's because of their interest in the gang-related activities.
And the impulsivity and the not understanding cause and effect and everything that you've listed.
And what goes on in prisons is that, it's very structured. You eat at a certain time, all kinds of other things go on, but the structure is in place there. So oftentimes they don't feel uncomfortable in prison. What really concerns me is that, that's a huge concern for me, is how it affects our society as a whole. But I have worked with children who have committed terrible crimes, who knew actually that they were prenatally exposed to alcohol and that they had these symptoms. They're very good, they're chameleon. They're very good at externally being socially appropriate. However, that's fairly short-lived. And they, intrinsically, again, will revert to that chaotic behavior. I worked with one child who was aging out of the system, and he understood that he was prenatally exposed to alcohol. He understood some of his symptoms. He was very bright on some scales. However, his behavior did not show that all the time. And he ended up killing a woman who had been very close to him and had helped him in his life and is now on death row.
How do we mitigate this for society? You've mentioned obviously this is totally preventable. We need to educate about no alcohol, and especially no binge drinking, no alcohol abuse, especially during reproductive years.
Yes.
That's obvious. Again, once a child has fetal alcohol syndrome or fetal alcohol effect, how can we mitigate that?
Once they have that, we need to go back to the creative ways of working with the children. They have difficulty, say, with time. Digital clocks are very good for them. Color coding of what is theirs is very good for them because, again, they're very concrete thinkers, so we as teachers, parents, foster parents need to start thinking in that way, concrete. They have difficulty with rule violations, as seen in many tests where there was just one rule, and that was, the Tower of London test where they placed these blocks, and the only rule was to put a larger one, under a smaller one, and there were all these rule violations, so they have difficulty understanding rules.
So it really is a matter of working very, very closely with these kids.
Yes, and understanding that they are concrete thinkers, and that we really need to be creative in how we work with them and praise them, and break down tasks into small components. And when they complete the task, then put stars or give a reward immediately for that task.
Thanks so much, Peggy. Thank you, Dr. McGuire, for joining us these last 2 weeks to talk about fetal alcohol syndrome and its effects on individuals and society. For upcoming episodes, viewer feedback, and links to important information on health, log on to our website at the address that appears on your screen. Health Vision is a production of the WOUB Center for Public Media.